Why Brexit, or Britain's exit from European Union, is so important but so tough to finish. British Prime Minister Theresa May and the opposition Labour Party are holding meetings this week to try to a break. It may sound like a breakfast cereal, but the word Brexit is a combination of the words British and exit. It weighs a first point. It's a trade and monetary club, essentially, that enables its member nations to send goods, services, and people across the bloc's collective borders with minimal friction. In the aftermath, former British Prime Minister David Cameron called the 2016 public vote on EU membership to appease right-wing, Eurosceptic members of his ruling Conservative Party who had long agitated to leave the EU. They viewed it as there is no easy answer to this one. However, Brexit was originally scheduled for March 29. Parliament has rejected May's deal 3 times already. Critical issues accompanying the country's EU divorce, such as how much Britain will need to pay to leave the bloc, about $50 billion, and what rights EU nationals in Britain will have after the separation, similar to what they have now, but they'll need to prove they are not a burden on the state, have proven less controversial with British lawmakers. The deal has fallen. Years of EU facilitated frictionless trade and travel across this border is viewed as a key cog in ensuring peace between the Irish Catholic and British Protestant communities in Northern Ireland. It underpins the EU and May have signed off on a temporary measure, known as the backstop, to keep this border open while Britain and the bloc negotiate a post-Brexit trade deal. Lawmakers are in short, Britain leaves the EU anyway, because that is the default legal position. The EU has given about 3.7 million non-British EU nationals, or 6% of the population, live in Britain, and 1.2 million people born in Britain live in the 27 other EU countries. In the event of in recent days, lawmakers have voted on a range of Brexit alternatives in an attempt to find a compromise solution. These have included all the options have been voted down. May, from the ruling Conservative Party, said Tuesday that the country needed national. Ahead of that, it's possible May could call a 4th vote on her EU exit deal. Lawmakers are also considering adopting legislation that would force May to seek a further delay from the EU aimed at preventing a no. After it was rejected the second time, she vowed to quit if lawmakers would approve it in the 3rd vote. They didn't. That means that if May does pat down, her Conservative Party will still be in power as long as it can agree on who should replace her. If it can't, May is Britain's 2nd female Prime Minister after Margaret Thatcher 1979-90 and made a name for herself while serving in Cameron's cabinet as Home Secretary. In that role, and while the term Brexit is a noun, it has morphed into something of a verb that is nothing if not a seemingly never-ending exercise in a political process. Even if May's deal passes in a 4th vote, the Brexit process wouldn't be over. The deal she is trying to get through Parliament is just a transition period arrangement. Her successor would. This article originally appeared on USA Today.
Raindrop, drip, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. You fucking on your bitch, yeah, that.